that. Guys, you actually can't get in the shot. It's just unprofessional. Okay. All right. What's in the shot right now? Where does it end?
Is the insert? Is that just reading to the microphones?
Yeah, this just connects to it's the
That's
easiest.
cool, isn't it?
Okay, we're gonna start it properly. G'day. Wow. Sorry. No, I'll start again. G'day everyone. Welcome to the Buffalo Stampede 2024 training videos. Talk you through how to train for the race in March. Start on the new year, which is perfect. Starts with a rest day.
No, I think I actually started. The subsequent weeks start with a rest day, but at that first day, you had to have a run on the first day.
All right, so you got to go for a run on New Year's
Give people
Day.
a bit of motivation.
So this is Blake Hose. Blake Hose is a very good trail runner. He's won the Buffalo Stampede probably, what, 3 times? 3 times he's won a race at the festival. And he's also the coach at Alpine Performance Run Coaching, aren't you?
Yep, sure am.
Got a lot of good athletes on his card, and so he's a pretty well experienced coach. And he's put together these programs for you to follow. Blake, who are these programs for? You want to talk us through?
The Buffalo programs, they're pretty much they're for anyone and everyone, really. I suppose we've got 2 different levels in the program. So they've got a beginner and an intermediate level for the 20K, the 40K and the 100K. I suppose the main type of person that they're aimed at are those that have a lower or kind of a moderate level of experience. We sort of make the assumption that a lot of the people that have, got a lot more experience have probably got a bit more knowledge about their training, and they might take things into their own hands or have a coach themselves. So we've begun with those 2 sort of, the beginner and intermediate level. And look, ideally people coming into using the programs are going to have some degree of base running behind them prior to starting. It's not really ideal if, come off the couch, decide to do a trail race and then just jump straight into a program. You can try, but it's, we want people to be able to get through the running, most importantly, consistently, and get to the start line healthy and ready to go on the day. So, yeah.
And as somebody doing these programs, like what's their goal? What are they trying to achieve out of their race?
Oh, look, it really depends on the individual. Writing the programs for such a broad scope of athletes can be tricky because it's not individualized to any one person's needs. So for one person, doing the beginner program for the 20K might mean that it's coming off their base, it's significantly performance enhancing. So they actually have a lot better run than they may have in the past. Whereas for another person, it might just, they might run similarly to what they have, but it might just be an easy way to follow some structure coming into the event. So I think the most important thing that you want to get out of them is having something to follow and to be consistent. Consistency is the king when it comes to training, as you know. Like if you'd much rather run consistently for 3 or 4 days a week for 12 months than run, 7 days a week for 3 months. So it's just about putting layer upon layer and getting it done as best you can with all of life's other factors included.
So let's get into the programs themselves. Looking at, for example, the Sky Marathon, the beginner program. So we'll start with the first week is pretty straightforward, just kind of getting into their running. We've got a regular thing on most weeks called a recovery jog. What do you refer to as that?
So your recovery runs are essentially a form of active recovery, as the name suggests, where you can still get in some level of aerobic volume in your running. So they're designed to be easier than your easy runs, so that you are actually recovering in the run. But you're still out there actually getting active, still getting some degree of stimulus. Probably some of the main things to note about recovery runs are that you pretty much can't do them too slowly, but you can definitely do them too quickly. So, for example, someone who runs a 2-hour half marathon might do their recovery runs at 7-minute plus kilometers if they're doing it on the flat. Whereas someone who runs, say, a 1:20 half marathon might be doing them at 5:15 a kilometer. So it's all relative to your ability. But the main thing is that when you are doing them, that they feel really, really easy, sometimes almost annoyingly easy. You still want to make sure that you're not getting into these odd gait patterns and that your run style is actually changing a lot, because then that can cause issues. But yeah, trying to make sure that you're sort of just going with the amount of energy that you have on that day, and just sort of let yourself tick along without pushing whatsoever.
So if you're like a competitive runner, don't do it in a popular area.
Yeah.
Avoid other runners passing.
Yeah, and avoid seeing people up the road and then chasing them.
You won't be able to resist chasing them.
Yeah.
So easy runs. You mentioned easy runs in the last bit. What's an easy run, and what's the goal of those?
Easy running is pretty much going to be the main component of any running program that you'll see. It makes up the bulk percentage of the running that you'll do. So generally your easy run or your long runs for the most part are going to be done at an easy pace. Like a lot of your mileage throughout the week is going to be done at an easy pace. And it's one of the main keys, especially with longer events. You know, once you're starting to get up into those really aerobically stressing events like your marathon and your 100K, having a good aerobic base from doing plenty of easy running is really beneficial for your economy over those distances and for building up that aerobic strength. So the intensity of an easy run, you're probably one of the best examples of doing easy runs very nice and easy. I don't think you've ever done an easy run too hard in your life.
I'm good at easy running.
You are good at that.
That's for sure.
But it can be a challenge for some people, because I think a lot of people will go out, it's meant to be an easy run, but then they'll get, we've got all these apps like Strava, you've got a GPS watch, you've got all this stuff, and you've got friends that are faster than you perhaps, and then all of a sudden your easy run can become a little bit competitive and it can become a lot faster than what it should.
Definitely.
But then the stimulus that you're imposing on your body isn't what you're actually looking for out of that run. So they're going to be faster than your recovery runs, but you should still never be pushing to sort of search for pace or search for effort in an easy run. It should be just that. It should be easy. It should be pretty conversational in nature. Like you should be able to run along with a friend and speak in sentences, really. So, if you go out and to be able to do that, it feels slow, or it feels slower than what you normally do, then you're probably running your easy runs too fast as a general rule. So, don't be afraid to slow things down. It's more than likely only going to benefit you, especially when it comes to hills as well. People tend to get to hills and it's like, oh, it's a hill, so I'm just going to, I don't know where the logic is, but if they try and run the same pace up a hill, it doesn't quite make sense. The physics don't work. But it's important to, actually try and go, like you are going to put in more effort going up a hill as a general rule, but it's important to not let that get away from you. You're also good at that. You're good at going slow uphill when you want to.
Yeah, but, maybe I'm too slow up hills these days. Nah.
But it's good to not let that get away from you and then end up, up the top of the 30-minute climb having just pushed for the last 20 minutes, sort of as your effort creeps up. So yeah,
long climbs especially.
Yeah,
shorter climbs you can kind of roll over a bit, but
yeah, if it is sustained, it's pretty easy to sort of go, oh, this feels easy. Oh yeah, and then just kind of adjust what feels easy the whole way up, and then at the top you're like, oh, that was actually got quite hard.
Yeah, for sure.
So yeah. It's a skill running easy.
And even downhill, it's almost like you can't really do those on heart rate either, because your heart rate's just not going to get up enough. So it's otherwise it's just too much impact on the body. So
yeah, that's it.
Take them a bit slower as well. All right, so let's explain some of the workouts here. So you got 9 weeks out at the beginner marathon program. You've got like this 15-minute warm up they're all on Wednesdays except for a couple of them, and you'll talk through that. You got a 15-minute warm, and then you have this 3 by 6 minutes at 75%. So do you want to talk through that workout and what you mean by all of those things, and then the 3-minute recovery jog between each one? So just talk through that workout as an example for the other ones, I guess. Yep.
I think as an overarching principle for, like, if you are somebody who's coming into the programs without really having done a program before, without having done workouts. So when we refer to workouts, So it's a bit of a funny term. In the running world, it just means that it's your harder session, basically. So like it's not just easy running, it's not just recovery running or it can be your long run sometimes, but it's essentially just involves doing reps or efforts at a higher pace than usual because you're trying to create a different stimulus to those easy runs. So the warm-up duration can sort of depend on the person, and you can make that all a bit personal. Like if you feel like it takes you, 20 minutes to get warmed up and to feel good, if you're starting early in the morning and it's, struggle to get out of bed, then that's absolutely fine. I'd advise if you're going to do anything, make the warm-up slightly longer than shorter, because you do want to make sure that you're adequately warmed up prior to doing a session. And then with something like 3 by 6 minutes, because these aren't individual programs, we've kind of gone with the percentages because one, I can't prescribe a pace for every single person that's going to use the programs, or I'd spend a lot of time writing programs. And can't use heart rate because, again, I don't know everyone's heart rate values. So it'd be impossible to be able to prescribe that.
And not everyone has a heart rate monitor.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So percentages. So if we're looking at an effort that's 5 minutes to say between 5 and 10 minutes, like these are, 6 minutes at about 75%. So what that would correlate to is the lower end of your lactic threshold, basically. So beginning to push towards your lactic threshold, but not exceeding it. And what that means in terms of effort, so over about 6 minutes, I would want that to be moderate to comfortably hard. And pretty much what that means is that you should be able to sustain those 3 times 6 minute efforts it's still going to be to some degree, it's still going to feel like, oh, I'm working by the end. It'd be nice if this was done. But you should never be all out running in an effort like that. Like if you're...
And you're 75%, that's, so you explain, like, if you're doing 6 minutes total flat out, it's 75% of that effort. Is that correct?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. That's it. So taking into account, if you were doing 6 minutes flat out, say if you, for example, would run, I don't know, if you did 6 minutes flat out and you would run at 3 minutes per K, for example, if you were someone who's quite quick, then if you were running it at 75%, you would probably be maybe running that 6 minutes at...
should have done 4 minute pace.
Yeah.
That's 3, yeah.
Yeah, well, let's say if you did 6 minutes flat out, you ran 4 minute Ks. Then if you ran at 75%, you might be running more at something like 4 minutes 20 a K.
Yeah.
So it's a sustainable effort for those 3 reps that it's going to feel solid, but you shouldn't be reaching for it, and you shouldn't be running yourself ragged, losing form, battling to hold it. So to be honest, in that workout, like that 75-ish area, I tend to underprescribe on the effort. Like that's probably, knowing that most people are going to run harder than what's prescribed, because generally in efforts, people, like I think I've only ever coached probably one athlete who I've given efforts to that's run them easier than what they're meant to be run at. Almost everyone tends to go, okay, harder session, I'm going to run it hard. So
that when you see those percentage numbers, that's not 75% of your sprint. That's 75% of the time interval that it relates to.
Yeah. So then if we looked back a week to 10 weeks out, where it was
2 minutes at 80%.
Say it was 4 by 2 minutes at 80%. So it's 4 times 2 minutes. Yeah, like that's a fast effort. Like that's much quicker than it's substantially quicker than what you'd be running the 3 by 6 minutes at, because it's 80% of what you could run for 2 minutes. And it's that 4 times. So if you were, again, the 4 minute Ks at max for 6 minutes, let's say you could run 2 minutes at 3:40. Then you might be running those 2 minutes at
sub 4 pace.
At 4 minute pace, roughly. Something like that. So it's all relative to the time frame.
No, that's good. So that's the workouts explained. The rest is pretty obvious. It's just it says it pretty obviously there. It's either static or an easy jog.
Yep. Let's maybe look at one of the less intense workouts so people can understand that a bit as well.
So which one would you want to do?
Yeah, something like that. So there's
yeah.
there's one that's 8 weeks out, which is like say 2 by 10 to 12 minutes. You've got an option there. There's terminology up tempo. So essentially, if you're doing reps that are a bit longer, like 10, 15 minutes, there's even a 30-minute run later in the program at like a steady up tempo pace. These should be like a sustainable, like you should be able to run this pace in training without killing yourself for an hour, really. Like if you were fairly fresh and feeling
it's
good.
like that hour effort, depending on
yeah,
how fit
like
you
it's
are, really.
it's like technically I'd say an hour effort's threshold, like lactic threshold. So these are these are at less than that. So it should just be a solid effort, but you're always well in control of the pace. Like if you're beginning to hit inclines and feel like you're starting to push and and you're starting to lose control of it a little bit, like if you're beginning to have to really focus to maintain the effort, then you're certainly running too hard for this. So I suppose
some people will call it like a fast fun, where it's like you're running fast, but you're not. It's fun. You're not like hurting.
Like you're running a solid pace,
Yeah.
but you're not belting. Yeah, you're not like belting yourself.
Yeah, and
And
they're fun workouts because
Yeah.
you move along quick, but you're not like
Yeah,
you're
you
not
aren't-
dying by the end of it.
Yeah, you're not emptying the tank.
Yeah.
So if it's like a good gauge, if you've done it well, is if you've been in control the whole workout and you can finish it thinking, oh yeah, like it was solid, but I'm far from spent. So I think a good way to approach almost all workouts, especially if you're new to running and you're new to training with a program, is err on the side of caution earlier in the workouts. So if you start a workout slow and then you realize, a few minutes in or, halfway through that it's going to be a bit too slow and you're easily going to do it and you can increase the pace, then that's much better if you negative split a workout than if you start really fast and then you're really battling by halfway and you begin to lose form and you sort of blow up. So don't be afraid to start slower and then finish faster.
We'll talk about some of the little things like strides and surges now. So you've got strides. Well, for example, there's some strides like 7 weeks out on the Saturday. So it says here, recovery jog 4 by 15-second strides, run through at 90% max pace at the end, and full recovery between. So just talk through those.
Yeah, so strides are essentially, again, strides shouldn't be something that are ever, they should never be hard. So the ideal way to do them is at the end of your run. So with these, say they're at the end of a recovery, like you do a really easy say you've done a really easy 4 to 8 kilometer run, you finish, you get home, and you've got a nice flat stretch, or it can be on a slight incline as well. Up is better than doing them down if it is a slight incline. And essentially what you're doing, like the idea of the strides are to promote a neuromuscular stimulus, so that your body it makes those connections with your muscles, so that you're keeping those faster twitch fibers activated, and it's you aren't just only ever engaging your slow twitch fibers, because making those connections is really important. That's why we find that if you do short, fast stuff like this, like surges and strides, and you sort of get everything switched on, they say, it's you can notice differences in your economy and how you're feeling on runs really rapidly. And it's not necessarily, large scale like physiological change, but it's kind of just making sure that those pathways are well worn and that those connections can be made. So yeah, they shouldn't be hard. You basically get to the end of your run, build through the first couple generally. So you might start at 80% of your max pace, even 70% of your max pace for that first one. Stand, get a good breath, have a bit of a walk around, make sure that you don't feel like you've got any fatigue in you before you do the next one. And then it's basically rinse and repeat. So generally through those sets, you'll get faster as you go. So you might do one at 75%, 80%, 85, 90%, and then you might do another 3 at say 90% of your max. And that's a safer way to do them than finishing your run and then just going bang, basically as fast as you can, 15 seconds. But yeah, I find that I've always found that they leave you, they shouldn't take anything out of you. And if they do, you're probably not having enough recovery in between. Yeah, I've only ever found that they're really a valuable little addition to programs and helping people, especially trail runners that like to do a lot of slow running and do a lot of hills. They're really good for your mechanics, just opening up your mechanics, because we spend a lot of time sort of shuffling uphill. Yeah, they're really good for that side of things, because there is a lot of running in the Buffalo races.
Yeah.
It's not just up and down. There is a lot of elevation, but I mean, you have to sort of taxi between all the hills, and they're all, there's some pretty runnable areas.
Yeah, you got to be a good runner, and even just being a good runner isn't going to improve your uphill running anyways. Downhill is a little bit of its own beast, but
yeah, exactly.
Downhills comes through practice, but
it's one of the best
uphill
predictors.
running is just like running form, essentially.
Yeah, one of the best predictors for how well you'll run uphill is how economical you are in the flat.
Yeah, so, running economy for sure.
Yeah,
I reckon that's about it. You'll see how it goes through like a general base period. And then you've got this absorption week, which is just generally making sure all your training's going in. And it gets you ready for those specific weeks, which are kind of through February. But yeah, the specific weeks will kind of get you race ready, I guess.
Yeah.
And you've got a 2-week taper, it looks like, in here, which is also pretty standard.
I mean, volume begins to, you want to have done kind of your hardest training by the time you're that sort of 3 to 4 weeks out. This is a bit of an individual thing as well. Like you would know, some people don't like to, like you don't want to get to 4 weeks out and then shut it down. That's not going to work. But you can slowly bring back volume, because there's diminishing returns from running volume from that point onwards. Like your body just doesn't have the time to actually make the adaptations, and then you're running the risk of coming into a race really quite fatigued. Whereas if there's anything that you want for a 100k race, it's to come in fresh. Yeah. So
yeah, you want to make sure your training's actually gone in. There's no point in doing training and it's not going in. It's a waste of time, but it's also not good for your body, and you'll run quicker fresh. Do you want to talk through? So we've got the beginner and the intermediate, for example. Somebody might start out on the beginner program, and maybe 3 weeks in, they think, they reckon they could do a bit more.
Yep.
Talk us through how they might be able to do that.
Yeah, it's important to sort of, I mean, not everyone's going to know exactly where their level is relative to the programs that are there if they haven't done a lot of running. So I think, again, with the work, similar to the workouts, it's probably better if you err on the side of caution to begin with. That's going to be better than than getting in above your head for the first month and then realizing that you're really sore, you've got a bunch of niggles, you're super tired, and it's not sustainable. So if you start a bit easier, say for a few weeks, and if you do happen to be finding that the program, you're really well on top of the training, like it's not hard for you, the volume, like the workouts are essentially, they're all going to be relative to your ability. But if the volume's feeling like it's perhaps too low, then you can always cross-check with some of the other workouts. Like if you start with the Sky Marathon beginner program, you can then just look across to the intermediate program and sort of go, okay, this is how much volume that program does. And, maybe substitute an 8K run for the 10 or 12K run that's in the intermediate program.
And it doesn't have to be every day of the week.
No, exactly.
The long run.
You might go, I've got time on this day because I don't work that day, or I don't have family commitments that day. I can go, I'm going to get in a little bit more volume because I feel like I can do that and recover from it easily. So,
and because you've got these rest days in throughout the programs, it helps people to shift runs. Yeah, for days sure. If they're not feeling great, or if they've got a big day at work or whatever.
Absolutely. I think the one thing to note, which is in the document that we wrote up, when you're shifting stuff around, which is completely fine. We understand pretty much everyone's going to have to move things around in the programs. It's inevitable because I've written them generically for a very diverse demographic. Yeah. But the one sort of key thing to try and avoid is if you don't want to necessarily put your riskiest days, and by that I mean like your higher loading days, together too often if you can avoid it. So you don't want to sort of take out maybe 3 running days at the start of the week and turn them into rest days, and then just do 4 running days in a row with a workout backing up with a long run, because that's essentially as risky as we could make it. So having those rest days in between just allows your body to recover and absorb. And then having a couple of days in between your workouts, or at least a day is good between your harder session and your long run, because they're going to be the 2 most taxing days of the week for you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I have only gone with 1 workout in the programs, bearing in mind that, like if people are following the programs, they're probably, they are less experienced. So I think that's just a safer way to get people to the races healthy and consistent. But if you're feeling awesome, like you've done a workout earlier in the week and you're feeling awesome on your long run or something, you can
That's
you can
the
run it
advantage,
at, like you can play around in your long runs sometimes. Like I wouldn't necessarily recommend going out and smashing all of your long runs hard. But if you're feeling good, like you're halfway through your long run or something and it's just feeling super easy, like maybe, push for an uphill or try and run the down, like work on your technique and speed a little bit on the downhills. Play around with a bit of that stuff. Like you still have to have fun with it. And having only that 1 workout during those weekdays, it does give you a little bit more flexibility to perhaps play around with that stuff relative to if you were doing 2 workouts. So
perfect. Nice. Easy. I reckon we're done. Anyways, good luck with the training, everyone. 1st of January it begins, and you'll all crush it, I'm sure.
Anyone wants any more info, just touch base.
Hit up Blake. What's your email?
we can chat about it. It's Alpine Performance Run Coaching @gmail.com.
There you go. Easy. Free coach.